born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. Upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. And I'm reading out of the King James Version of the Bible. All right? Now, obviously, the prophet Isaiah is prophesying, foretelling the birth of Christ. Okay? But notice that he says in the same verse number 6, that the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And verse number 7 begins and says, of the increase of his what? Of his what? Government. Now, I've said this before. What is a kingdom? It's a government. It's a domain of the king. It's a form of a government. And the prophet is giving us insight on how and who is going to reign in this government. What government are we speaking of? The kingdom of God. Okay? So I want to establish that very early, that God's intention and design was not necessarily for us to come to a church building on a Sunday. And obviously it's not bad if you do, because I'm here. You're here. And we're all here. But his original intention was not necessarily to make us church goers, but it was to establish his government or his reign in us. Okay? And we're going to see this a little bit further here in the New Testament. Verse number 7, let's look at this again. He says, of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. Understand that God's kingdom doesn't expire. Does anyone, this is just my little quirky thing, does anyone like the Middle Age, Queen Elizabeth and King James? Is anyone interested in that kind of stuff? I am. I love that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me. And once a king or a queen dies, what happens? It goes on to someone else. When is God going to die? Now, there is no end. So his reign, his administration, if I can put it like that, doesn't stop. And so what he's doing is he is inviting us to be a partaker of that which goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Now here's the dilemma or the problem that some of us have, is that some of us, not all of us, but some of us feel and think that once we die, that it's over. But it's not. Once you and I die, it really is just beginning. Because we are eternal beings here on earth for a season, for a time. Okay? And we'll get into this a little bit later, but I really want to establish this early in the beginning of the class, that we focus our thinking away from Santa Claus and ho-ho-ho and Christmas jingles and all that, and really see what the intention and the purpose of God was when he came on earth to invite us into this kingdom. This is what Christmas is about, celebrating Christ. Okay? Now let's turn to Luke chapter number 2. Luke chapter number 2. Luke chapter number 2. Matthew, Mark, Luke, third book of the New Testament. We're going to begin at verse number 1. It says, and it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This census first took place while Quirinius was governing Syria. So all went to be registered, every one in his own city. Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David. Now, didn't we just read in Isaiah about the throne of David, the kingdom of David? Just read that, okay? Verse number 5, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. In other words, she was pregnant. Verse number 6, so it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered. She was pregnant, she's about to have this baby. All right? Verse number 7, and she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now there were in the same country shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were greatly afraid. Then the angel said to them, what? Do not be afraid. Now, I'll pause here for a very specific reason. When God is about to move in our life, when God is about to do something that is going to shift us from one place to the next, if we are honest, we get afraid, don't we? If we're honest. If we are honest, when God begins to shift a paradigm or shift a way of thinking in our life, and we feel it coming, we get afraid because it is unfamiliar to us. Now here's the angels of the Lord coming to these shepherds by night, and the first thing that they say is what?